So now that I explained a little bit about the dependencies that Formity depends on, we're going to talk about how Formity is used to develop dynamic forms, as I said before. First thing you need to do is create the components and provide them using Formity provider. Use the Formity provider, and you use the components prop. In this prop, you pass the components that you will use later on. Okay, these are the components that we will use. And we have to create a JSON that defines the form, and we have to pass it to Formity. The Formity component, and we have two props. We have the form prop and the onSubmit prop. Form is the JSON that defines the form, and handle submit is the function that will be called when the form is submitted. So the JSON that defines the form is an array of elements. There are different types of elements. And I will give you a quick look about these elements. The form element, variables element, the condition element, loop, and the return. All of these elements in combination let you create any form you want. And I'm going to talk about each element a little bit more. So, well, the form is used to define a form. It's a step in the form. It is defined using this syntax. An expression is a Mongo expression, the ones I talked before. And the expression has to resolve to an object with these three properties. The default values is for the default values of the form. The resolver is for the validation rules. These validation rules are defined using Mongo expressions. In this case, the name has to not be equal to an empty string, and if that's the case, we have the error message that is required. In this case, if the length of name is less than 20, okay, but if it's more than 20, we have this error message. And then we have the render that defines what components have to be rendered. In this case, we are using the components that we defined before, the layout form, text field, and the props of the components are used as keys, as you can see here. I'm going to show this form, and then I'm going to explain how the form element is used to develop this form. As we have this validation rule required. We get this result. So this is the JSON, and we have the form element. These are the default values. These are the validation rules. And this is what we render. The return element defines what the form returns. We defined the return using the syntax, and the expression can resolve to anything. And it is what the form will return. So I'm going to show this form, and then how we use the return element to this form. can see we return our full name, even though we provided our name and surname in separate fields. In this form, that's how we define the return. As you can see, the result is the concatenation of the name and surname. The variables element is used to define variables. We define the variables element using the syntax, and the expression has to resolve to an object in which each key will be a variable that will be used later on. Let's look at this form. You can see it's the same as before, but we are using a variable here. You see, we define a variable, that's the full name, and then we use this variable here in the return. Condition is used to define a condition. That's the syntax. If the result of the expression is true, then we do the following. And if that's not the case, we do the following. Each of these elements are the elements I'm defining. The form, the return, whatever. In this example, if I introduce 29, for example, we are asked if we have a driving license. If I introduce 14, we are not asked this question. The JSON, we have a condition. If the age is greater than or equal to 18, then we have this form in which we ask if we have a driving license. But if that's not the case, we create the driving license variable with the value of false. The loop element is used to define a loop. As the syntax, while the expression is true, we do the following. So we have a loop here in which we are asked like the same question, but for a different sport. If we like football, I'm going to say, for example, no. But I may like basketball, so yeah, and tennis, I'm going to say yes. That's what we get. And as you can see here, a loop in which we have this while. While the result of this expression is true, in this case, we are using these operators. Size is to get the size of this array. The I is integer, and while the I is less than the size of questions, keep doing the same. The following. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about the app I talked about before and how I could create this app using Formity. As I said before, developing an app like that would be very hard without this package. I didn't find a way to define these forms in a very simple way, and I struggled to be able to store these forms in a database. That's why Formity was created, and then I'm going to talk about how Formity can be used to develop this application. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about what this application is about, or to explain later on how Formity can be used to create it. The first thing is that users have to be able to create groups of different categories, like a group about sports, a group about music, or traveling. When they create a group, they have to fill in a form. For example, if it's a group about sports, they will have to to provide information about what type of sports this group is about. Then users have to be able to join these groups, and when they join a group, they have to provide information about them. For example, if someone joins a group about sports, he'll have to provide information about what type of sports he likes. Then users have to be able to search other users inside the group they are in. When they search users, they also have to fill in a form. For example, the example of the sports, the user will have to provide information about what type of sports the people like. What type of sports does the people like that you are searching for? So this is an example of how I'll structure this application. This is the structure of the database. We have categories of groups, users, and user group is the information about the user in a group. So the categories have a form, that's the create group form. JSON, the JSON I defined, one of the JSONs I defined before. The join group form is a form that users have to fill in when they join a group. And then we have search users form. It's a form that users have to fill in when they search for other users inside this form. Create group form is a form that when you fill in that form, you get these two forms. So as I said before, a Formity form, a JSON that defines a form, produces the result you want. The return lets you return whatever you want. So you can return a JSON if you want. And in this case, when you return JSON, you can return these two forms, the join group form and the search users form. Let's talk about the join group form. When a user joins a group, he has to provide information about him, and the result of this form are some values. These are the values of the user inside the group. You can see these are the values of the group. And the search users form is a form that users have to fill in when they search for other users. And the result of this form can be a database query, for example, in which you retrieve the users that you're searching for. So to summarize, Formity provides all the solutions to manage forms. You can do whatever you want with Formity. You can use your own components, customize them like you want. You can use all kinds of logic. You can use conditions, loops, operations. You can return whatever you want using these operations I said before. And since these forms are defined using a JSON, you can store these forms in files or databases. I hope you find the value here. I think it's I strongly believe that this solution is one of the best ways to manage forms. And I hope that you use it if you think that it can be very valuable for you. You can find this package at martiserra.me/Formity. And thank you very much for attending.
Any questions?
Yeah, a few. So first thing that is on my mind is how does all of that, if I understand right, you need to install the package, the Formity, the React hooks, and the Mongo, right? And then you have a provider and you pass all the components you want to that provider from Formity, and those components must be React hooks, no? So some input from using a form of React hooks.
Yeah, the components need to be registered to the form. Yeah.
Yes. So how does all of that deal with, for example, TypeScript? For example,
This package is created using TypeScript.
yeah, and so it's fully approved with TypeScript. Okay. Then I got a little bit confused when you're starting to set up Formity. So I understand that when you install the package, you need to fill 2 or 3 forms that will be the JSONs that will provide you the form. I was kind of lost in that part. How do you set up Formity?
You have to install the npm package.
Yes.
Formity. When you install Formity, the other packages are automatically installed as well.
But then what you were talking about, the group forms and stuff like that, that's
A group of forms.
When you had like the graphics with the values, group form, user forms, I didn't quite get what that is.
That was an example of how a Formity could be used inside an application.
Okay.
I was talking the forms I talked about. Forms are separate JSONs. Each one is a different form.
Yeah. That's when is that prompt? When do you need to create those? When you install the package, you get prompt to create those forms, or that's just for that happening specific?
You install the package using
npm,
and you have to create a JSON that defines the form, as I said before. You have to use the Formity provider to define the components and the Formity component. The Formity component is where you use the JSON. You just
so those groups there are all returns from the Formity.
Sorry, can you?
Those, for example, join group form, that's a product, a return from the Formity, is a creation from the Formity.
That's an example of what would be
a use case from the Formity.
Yeah.
Okay. That's.
Any question? More questions?
I have some. So it's very impressive itself that you publish an npm package. Most of us work with them every time, but we never really find out the time nor the way of put that npm package up. Can you just, this is maybe outside of Formity, but which were the difficulties of publishing an npm package? How does this idea come to life? You mentioned something that you started to create an application, and then you realize, okay, this application is really something bigger than I really want to continue working on. So maybe this package is needed, right? So what is the thought process when you have first the idea to create a package, and then how do you upload it to npm, and how do we, maybe you analyze something about the licensing, how do we do the licensing? And so can you explain a little bit of your thought process there?
Well, Formity, I decided to create Formity because of the struggles I faced when I wanted to create that application. And since Formity can be used for whatever application that uses forms, I decided to publish it as an npm package. So to develop an npm package is very simple. You just have to create a project, and then you have to write npm publish. It's not that hard.
Okay, so that's it directly.
Yeah.
Is it revised by someone, or when you publish the npm package, is it revised by someone, or
Is there some?
like someone is like checking this?
To be
No, it's
revised or
no. You just publish it and it's there.
it's done.
And someone who's using it just has to believe it's gonna work.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Someone who uses this has to believe that it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you also have like an imagine that we start a new project here and we decide to use Formity because we really like it. So I also imagine that you also manage the issues on GitHub in case something happened. Any developer start to use it and say, okay, this is a bug here. So you also manage that.
Yeah, but for now I don't have any issues. I mean,
That's
there's
great.
no one that taught me anything yet.
Okay, but
It's pretty new, this package.
yeah, but in case it happens, it's also part, I mean, of developing and publishing an
Yeah.
NPM package. You
Yeah.
need to maintain it. And I also found pretty interesting the fact that there is basically two like NPM registries that is the same. One is the GitHub, and the other one is the NPM GS page that has the same README as the GitHub, right? So if you publish it directly, it automatically creates this entry in this NPM registry, meaning the web that has the same README as the GitHub and so, or do you also need to?
The README is the same as the one from GitHub.
So it once you publish, what you publish is the GitHub repository,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, exactly.
and then based on the GitHub repository, you NPM creates that page.
NPM creates the README page from the README of the project.
Okay.
I mean, the project is the same, the one you publish to GitHub than the one you publish to NPM.
Okay, meaning if you push to GitHub, it will also be reflected on the NPM directly, or
Yeah.
you need to deploy.
Well, you push it to GitHub using git push, but when you publish it to NPM, it's NPM publish. It's another command.
Okay.
So it's not GitHub related.
Yeah, it's not related.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the publish, but the publish take into account the GitHub repository. So the publish fetches the last of the or it's
NPM
different.
Publish is the project,
Yeah.
but not the one from GitHub, the one you have in your system.
Okay.
A la
Okay.
izquierda hacia la Rambla.
Okay. I get it.
So you don't have nothing like licensing and stuff, all that. Or how do you protect your code and
It's the MIT license. It's the one that most NPM packages use.
use? Yeah.
That means that if we want to create a pull request that we see something or we add some new functionality, we are also allowed to do so. The package.
Yeah, if you want to contribute, you can do so. In fact, I'm looking for people to contribute here because I think it's a very big thing and I want to make it bigger. So if you want to contribute, feel free to do so.
It's interesting. Good job, man.
Yeah, I mean it's really great. As I said, we work with NPM packages every time, but we never really had the guts to upload something created from scratch. So having this into account, just last question, sorry. Just having this into account, which are, if you have any just plans for the future for Formity? You said that you were searching for contributors. Do you have any plans for the future or any?
Just make it bigger. So,
Make it bigger. Okay.
make this package known, to find a way for companies to use this package, and then maybe create some templates with some components that can be used with Formity. I see a lot of things that can be done here, but the first thing I need to do is to find people to work here as well, because I don't have unlimited time, and if I want to make it bigger, I need to find more people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so having your like the Formity component library could be something big, right? That it will allow you to use Formity without having your own components. But it takes a lot of time for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things could be like, I was thinking the other day, I was just using for a personal project Formity to learn more about the tag and so. And I found out that one of the things that I was creating was some sort of wrapper, because you need to initialize the context for every component. So I was thinking about, okay, maybe I can create a component that is a wrapper itself and then pass it as a children for every form element that I have. So every form element will be wrapped inside this wrapper that has the context initialized in it. And I think, okay, this may be a good idea. Just
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to do. Yeah, so you can use Formity with any other library. You have to create a wrapper, as you said, and I could find a way, I think, to write a wrapper here inside Formity.
yeah, like a generic one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, because once you have your wrapper, you can just import the wrapper and then pass it the wrapper to your own component. And once you create, if you want to have the Formity components, I don't know, you can also use the same wrapper, for example. More questions?
Well, I have one. Well, thank you for the presentation. It's great. Yeah, I have a use case. I was thinking about it, and I don't know if it would be possible to have like a higher level condition where you can set different forms, so different JSONs depending on a condition.
Well, what's inside the condition, you can consider it as another form. All that's in that condition is just an array of elements. That's what the JSON is.
Yeah, well, in my use case, it would be like a very, very big JSON file. So for that case, it would be nice to have separate JSON files and depending on this condition to use.
Reference that form. It's an interesting thing to do, yeah.
For now, it's not possible, but
No.
probably it's a feature in the future.
Yeah, that's something I don't think about, but it's
That's
interesting.
the roadmap. Have any more questions? So thank you, Martí, and we will go to the kitchen. Just wait a few minutes for the pizzas, and then we can networking and hang out.